Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We know what it is yet?
Let's follow that up with good luck.
Nice to meet you. I was here last. Yeah, I'm here. Joe.
They do not want me there.
Decided to stay, huh?
Well, I thought I might as well see what's going on here.
I had a conversation with Ryan earlier
You did?
about your situation with the TSX regulation and everything that.
I've been making phone calls, and I didn't want to embarrass anybody, but I'm being ready. And I'm sorry that I missed the meeting. They told me it was at 6:30 or out of 10.
If it is found in the city,
How are you?
that might solve a lot of issues. I mean,
I got letters, emails from you. They have no
Somebody does this, you just go through it.
It better because I'm going not to shut up. You know that. Yes. Well, I'm going to get you. Hey.
That's it. That's the last one.
Thank you for helping us.
Oh, I'm happy to play it off. I will say that the next year. Maybe I'll call the news and have them there. Because I say, they hate working. I don't want to embarrass my position. That's all I can do. Get something
Yeah.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the October Winchester Clark County Planning and Zoning meeting. We'll go and call the meeting to order. Review of the last meeting minutes from September the 3rd. Is there any comments, concerns, changes? Motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
I have a motion. Is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next, we'll move into the treasurer's report.
You should have received the financial reports in your email previous to the meeting, and I do not have any bills submitted or approved, so. There's all.
Thanks, Kim. Any questions for Kim?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. All right, at this time, we'll move into new business, number 4. This is to invite the public to be heard for any item not on our agenda. Any item not on our agenda tonight. Is there anyone that would like to speak? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I would love to speak, thank you. My name is Teresa Bridges, and I live at 899 Clintonville Road. And I work here in Winchester at Storage Rentals of America. And I really had intended to attend the 5:30 meeting, but they told me the meeting was at 6:30 tonight. But this commission should be aware of this issue as well. I think Rob does know somewhat about it. I've been working for a little over a year over there, been asking for the homeless encampment to be cleared up. I understand we have a new SAVE Act, we have a new act where it could be cleared up. But I'm really very concerned about the issues of not having, us not knowing who owns what property. We have properties in Winchester, and I've been told by the city commission that there's a question of who owns the property. I have been conversing with CSX myself because of the problems that I have with the break-ins at my facility. They cut the fence every single night. There's a homeless encampment back there. I had never heard of, and I'm glad I had never heard of, there's a place called Hobo Jungle. I don't know if you've heard that term or not, but it's called Hobo Jungle. And there are homeless people that live from behind our housing authority, clear down to the mess that's on the corner of Jackson Street and New Street. So I'm not for sure, how this is going to be taken care of, but I have started doing the legwork because no one in our community has. And I'm very disappointed because I would think somewhere along the way there's someone that we paid to do this job. And I haven't been able to find out who that person really is. I've called and I've asked to talk to the mayor. She has never returned one phone call to me. I understand we have a new city manager, but he's new. So I'm concerned, who is running our city? Is it the city commissioners? Is anybody even aware of these things? But I have emails finally from CSX, and I'm going to guarantee you somebody's going to be very surprised that I have the entire email chain from the last year where I've been asking for something to be done, and nothing has been done. And it's disrupting our business, and something needs to be corrected. We have 690 locations, and I'm glad to turn this over to our legal department, but I don't want to embarrass our city. I don't want to embarrass our county. And right now, I'm very embarrassed for everyone because there has been no one to step up and take the lead on these types of projects. Were you all aware of a place called Hobo Jungle or Hobo Alley in Winchester? I'm ashamed that we have known about it for over 25 years. When the police came out, they said the other lady never called. I said she never did her job. They have known for 25 years we have had a homeless issue behind there, and they refuse to clean it up. They're arguing about whose property it is. When CSX has clearly said they only ever had an easement to that property, it's all over town. It's all over the state of Kentucky. No one has cared enough to make sure that our property plats are correct. Mr. Baldwin gave me a plat, which was wonderful. He actually did divide it off, but it's not divided off at the state. They show one big railroad bed. So to be arguing over it for all this time and no one to actually jump on it, an elected official, maybe not an unelected bureaucrat, to take care of this. So I'm not sure what intersection you all will have, but I would think with this being planning and zoning, that you would know about these parcels of land in town that have no ownership. And the city's refusing to take responsibility. That's the way I see it at this point, because I have been trying for over a year and have not been able to get it done. It's one of those issues of we are they. The city and the housing authority are our agencies. You cannot separate them.
Can you tell me, I'm sorry, once again, where are you speaking of?
I'm talking about Wynn Avenue, behind the storage facility, behind the housing authority, in front of where Leggett and Platt is on New Street, that whole strip. And there's a corner down there. And I'm sorry, I understand that gentleman has run for office before. That is disgraceful that that's in our city, and we have not had a code enforcement officer make him clean it up, all of it. I went by there today, there's tables set everywhere, there's a part of a truck in the back. I heard from CSX he had poured oil and things in the ground, and no one has done anything. So, I mean, I would just think that somebody in town, is it because it's on that side of town? I wasn't aware of any of that. I had never worked on that side of town. I have worked in Winchester, period. I have been out of town for the last 25 years, so I was very, very surprised that that situation existed, was known about, and was allowed to exist. So please, I implore you, do something. I do care about homeless people, so much so that they shouldn't have to live under the trees. Thank you.
Ma'am, can you put your phone number?
I certainly will.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak? Okay, we'll move into our first public hearing, A. Review a commercial plan development project for the plan development zone property located at 550 Bullen Boulevard. Turn it over to Rob for staff report.
All right. The applicant submitted an application for a final plan development project consisting of a Chipotle Mexican grill restaurant. The applicant has requested to forego the preliminary review. The PDP submitted their plan development project met the criteria for a final plan development project. The property consists of approximately 0.88 acres. The proposed building has a finished floor elevation of 951.75 feet. The setbacks consist of the following: the front yard, and this is what I measured with my scale in the office, so it's going to be approximate. If the applicant is here, you can tell me if I'm right or wrong later. But the front yard appears to be approximately 70.7 feet on the bypass side. Front yard on the Bullion side is approximately 90 feet. Side yard on the east is approximately 30, and the side yard on the west is approximately 80. That sound all right?
Close enough.
All right, close enough. Our plan development project regulations, they don't have a set guideline in place for setbacks. So it's pretty much the applicant can submit what they feel is appropriate for the site, and the planning commission can review that. I will say that that meets or exceeds most of our commercial zoning districts. I think the smallest, like you would have a 25-foot front setback in some areas, so 70, 90, 30, 80, we're looking good. The parking provided is 30 parking spaces, 2 of which are handicapped. The requirement is 1 parking space for each 4 seats at maximum capacity or 200 square feet of floor area, whichever is greater. Landscaping provided is we have 7 perimeter trees, 6 interior trees, shrub plantings along both the bypass and Bullion Boulevard. The shrubs will grow up to 4 feet behind. The requirement is to have 1 tree, and again, it's plan development. So plan development, there's some flexibility there on both the applicant's part and the planning commission's part. You don't have to issue variances per se, it's just PDPs or plan development projects are best way to describe it is it's a flexible plan that can present to the planning commission where you can hire, or you can require more or less than what's normal. So the normal requirement would be 1 tree per 40 feet, or fraction thereof, plus a 3-foot average height continuous hedge, fence, wall, and earth mound. And then the interior landscaping is for each 100 square feet, or fraction thereof, the or use area, 5 square feet of landscape area shall be provided. So what they are providing is similar to what we have in place for our landscaping requirements. And then the minimum landscape area, that would be what's commonly known as islands or peninsulas that are in your parking areas, your grass or mulch or low height plantings like flowers and shrubs. Their minimum landscape area would be minimum landscape or permitted shall be 64 square feet with at least dimension of 8. The interior tree requirement is 1 tree shall be required for each 250 square feet or fraction thereof of the required landscape area. 7.3 plan development district is located in your staff report, as well as 8.4. That's the plan development project requirements, going over the standards and what's required at this stage, as well as the plan submitted to the planning office. So this is similar to what we have approved in the past for the plat, showing the 2 plats that we're going to be upgrading there. And then here's where the Chipotle is going to be located. This is Bullion Boulevard and the bypass. So the front of the store will be facing the bypass, is that correct? And the dumpster pad will be on the Bullion side. And you can see the parking there and the drive-through. And then this is just showing the topography of the area. And then a lot of like this is for the engineer tech to review and improve when it comes to stormwater and grading. The landscaping plan is what I wanted to really so what I described with the landscaping, this is the details of that description, showing where the trees are planted in the interior versus perimeter landscape. Any questions or comments for staff? It's a Chipotle, guys. Winchester's moving up in the world. They're not good.
Thank you, Rob. Would the applicant like to come up and add any additional information?
Chairman Hunt, security engineer, representing this project. We're just here to answer any questions that Ms. Bob highlighted. I think kind of took that project pretty well. Technical review on that. So just here, if there's any questions on this project.
So you're the engineering firm for the applicant?
Correct.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no questions from the commission, we'll move into public comment. Is there anyone here that would like to speak for or against this item on our agenda? Okay, we'll close the floor. And open the floor to the commissioners for review and possible motion.
No issues with waiving the preliminary entrance street.
No, so they submitted a very detailed plan development project plat here, meeting the requirements of the plan. They went through that review, where most people saw it, agreed the same. In that review process, that's where we asked them to update the landscaping so that I can show and describe the plans.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
there's no questions. I'd like to make a motion to lay the preliminary requirement and approval of the final plan development plan plat for the property located at 550 Bullion Boulevard for a Chipotle Mexican grill, based on the fact that the proposal meets the requirement for principal and special uses as found in Article 7.3 and follows the procedures and standards set forth in 8.4 of the Winchester Clark County zoning ordinance.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Okay, this time we'll move to public hearing B. Rob, you want to talk us through that one?
Yeah. So, just going down the street a little to 485 Bullion. We've seen the preliminary project for this already for the secure store. It's the self-storage, all indoor facility, climate control. The first time it was brought to us, it was all one level, and it kind of took up a lot of the space there. Since then, they are now showing a 2-floor plan, which will help with grading and stormwater runoff. Just go through the applicant. The applicant submitted an application for a preliminary plan development project proposing a climate controlled self-storage facility to be located at 485 Bullion for the August 2024 Planning Commission meeting. The preliminary plat was reviewed and approved at the meeting. Since August, the applicant has submitted a final plan development project with a change made to the building. The building is now a 2-story building with a finished floor elevation of 976 feet. Property consists of approximately 3.080 acres, and the site statistics consist of the following. So the lot coverage is now 37.4%. The building size is 2-floor. Each floor is about 50,200 square feet. The front setback is 29 feet, side setback is 45 feet, and rear setback is 38 feet. Parking provided is 5 parking spaces near the front office. Staging vehicles for loading and unloading will be permitted around the perimeter of the building, near the entrances and exits of the building. So there's no requirement for parking for self-storage facilities in our zoning ordinance. There is parking for professional office, and so that front office would be 1 parking space for 400 square feet of floor area. So I would say it meets or exceeds that. And as discussed during the last meeting, they're going to allow vehicles to go around the perimeter of the building and to stage those vehicles that are loading and unloading into the facility. I think that will help with the parking. Landscaping provided is 14 perimeter trees, no interior trees, shrub plantings along both Bullion Boulevard and Crossbrook. And the requirement is similar to the requirement that I read earlier. If I need to go over that again, let me know. The 7.3 plan development district describing the uses permitted, special uses permitted in that zoning district, as well as 8.4 plan development project regulations. Again, going over the procedure and requirements for this zoning district, and then your sample motions. And then we have the new plan. And one of the reasons why we're bringing this back for a public hearing is because of the change in the structure. Normally, the final plan development projects wouldn't be reviewed at a public hearing, because it went from a large 1-story building to a 2-story building. Felt it best to bring back as a public hearing. Any questions or comments from staff?
So there's no reason that we would have to either waive or do anything different since we approved something that's been changed?
So you approved the preliminary plan, and so you would be approving the final plan showing the 2-story building.
There's no issues with changing the mission?
No, so I think there would have been an issue if we didn't require a public hearing, and we just approved it without a public hearing. Might have had a little issue with that, but because of the change was drastic enough, we chose to have the public hearing again.
Mr. Gullen, are you okay with that?
I am. In fact, Rob and I previously discussed this, and we decided that a public hearing was the safest way for the commission to go.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Rob? Okay, is the applicant here?
Good evening, Mr. Chair. If I may approach the commission real quickly, this is actually the final plan that was submitted to staff. It's almost identical to what is before you, but it was submitted with one minor correction to stormwater management after Mr. Jeffries did his staff report. So I just want to make sure you have that, and maybe if it can just be maybe part of the applicant's submission here tonight. As Mr. Jeffries kind of was saying, this is very similar to what was before you back in August. The primary change is it's now a 2-story facility. That's actually what most of the applicant's current facilities are 2 stories. I'm not going to belabor a lot of the same points, but you know where you're looking. The buffering that is shown, as Mr. Jeffrey said, kind of exceeds what is required in your plan development. You have a lot of leeway. There are no trees shown on the perimeter, and that is because, if you recall, there's some pictures that you can look at, but there is significant existing buffering along the property lines, full mature trees and shrubs that are already there. The applicant plans on keeping those there and creating the surrounding single-family homes. This is before you for a final development plan. I'm here to answer any questions that you might have, but this facility will be basically about a little bit bigger, but the only main difference from your perspective is before we had a variance, because I think the building size covered like 60-something% of the lot, and now it's down to 37%, which is within the requirements of the zoning ordinance. So there's really a pretty straightforward application. You've kind of already become very familiar with this site, but if you have questions at all, I'm happy to answer them. The applicant's here, and Mr. Baldwin, the engineer, is also here.
So I was having issues with my computer I normally bring. This is my boss's computer. And it's not letting me pull up the PowerPoint.
It's okay. The only real thing there was to show you some pictures of the site, kind of let you know. There's actually ramps now, because it's a two-story facility, that would allow basically cars to park up on the second level and access the facility. Because the building is now 2 stories, it'll be required to be sprinkled. So some of the concerns before, I think you all raised about access for fire, is a lot less of an issue now because the building will be fully sprinkled. This did go through technical review committee, fire evaluated it, said that it was fine with them. If you look, you can kind of see the buffering that I'm talking about. You know, the existing trees along the property line far exceed what is required under the zoning ordinance in terms of buffer. And if Mr. Jefferson, you just go forward and kind of see what the proposed buildings will look like. These are existing facilities. Maybe not as familiar to you as a Chipotle, but you've seen self-storage before. You can see it's kind of 2 stories. The next picture will kind of show you there's a ramp up to the second level. There'll be access points at both levels for people to enter the facility and access their internal storage units. It'll be very, very similar to this. So,
I think it's one of the first ones we have in town.
I think it'll be the first that's fully climate controlled storage facility in town. There are some that have some storage units climate controlled, but this will be a full facility. So, any questions at all?
Thank you
all for your consideration.
Okay, at this time, we'll open the floor for public comment. Is there anyone here that would like to speak for or against this item? Okay, we'll close the floor to the commission for discussion and possible motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I make a motion to approve the final plan development project plan for the property located at 45 William Boulevard for the use of a climate controlled storage facility. Proposed change from a 1-story building to a 2-story building based on the fact that the proposal meets the requirements of principal special uses as set in Article 7.3, follows procedures and standards set forth in 8.4 of the Winchester Clark County zoning ordinance.
There's a second. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Okay, at this time we'll move to public hearing C, review a major subdivision plat subdividing the agricultural zone property located at 725 Gay Evans Road into 19 parcels.
Bobby, you can see everything okay, right?
I can, yeah.
All right, just want to make sure.
I gotta be right back.
All right. The next item on the agenda is for 725 Gay Evans Road. The applicant would like to subdivide the 344.1 acre farm property into a total of 19 parcels ranging in size from 1.958 acres to 1.6624 acres. 3 of the 19 parcels will be under 5 acres in size. The remaining 16 acres would all be over 5 acres in size. Each proposed parcel will meet or exceed the requirement to maintain at least 250 feet of public road frontage. After discussing the proposal with Planning Commission legal counsel, we felt it was best to review as a major subdivision plat. The definitions for both major and minor subdivisions are defined in the staff report and was shown. The dimension area requirements found in Article 6.1, titled Agricultural District of the Winchester Clark County zoning ordinance addresses the minimum public road frontage requirement for agricultural zone property. The minimum requirement is 250 feet. And then we have sample motions on the staff report as well as the proposed plat showing all 19 parcels. So in our zoning ordinance, we have under definition of agriculture use. It's when it comes to the size of property, it's 5 acres or more. In the zoning ordinance, when it talks about the minimum lot size for an agriculture zone property, it's 1 acre. I'm not sure why they differ, but they have for as long as I've been here and longer. Again, agriculture use is defined as being 5 or more acres, but the minimum lot size for an agriculture zone is 1 acre. So what they propose meets the minimum lot size requirements as well as the 250-foot requirement. Mr. Gold and I felt it was best to bring for you guys. Some may look at the zoning ordinance and feel that maybe it could be approved without a public hearing. But when we talk about 19 parcels in an agriculture zone, we want to make sure that we give ample opportunity for people to discuss it, as well as the planning commission and the public. Any questions or comments for staff?
I know you said each one of them has 250 feet of road frontage. For example, number 3, will it have enough for setbacks and septic tanks and all that because it's so small? Is my, and maybe the number, sorry, and the, I don't know if it's 19 or 18.
Yeah, I can see that.
That was my only, once you have the required dimensions of being
From what I was told, and I can be corrected if I'm wrong, there's people who have lived in this community for a long time, longer than me, many around this table. I've been here for 8 years. But the reason why the minimum requirement is 1 acre is because that's what they saw fit for a septic system. So a septic system has to be installed on a property that are at least 1 acre in size. Am I right? Did someone tell me wrong?
Well, you're not necessarily right.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. Well, that's what was told to me, that, 1 acre in size was determined and appropriate for a septic system. This one, parcel 3 is 3.116 acres. So if we allow septic on a 1 acre lot, 3 acre lot will accept the septic system.
But I want to say along that point, and I ran across this today in Menifee County. The health department here went to 1 acre because that was what was in the planning. All of the R1 zones have so many square feet. If it has sewer, 1 acre if it doesn't. And that was put in the zoning ordinance from 1965, whenever it started. And that was kind of when it went to the 1 acre for the rural. The whole idea there was to preserve farmland. So the 1 acre, that was really came to the 1 acre minimum 350 feet of road frontage. Actually, I found that the state health department regulation is actually 20,000 square feet. I found that out today. And that is a state regulation. But there are different counties that have different things. Montgomery County has 3/4 an acre. We have 1 acre. Menifee County now has 0.46, which is 20,000 square feet. So in any event, this thing meets every regulation that we have here in Clark County, period.
Appreciate that, Bob. Thanks for clearing that up for us. Any other additional questions for staff? So through the technical review, Alan Curtis wasn't able to attend the actual meeting, but we discussed after I was able to discuss it with him and talk to him about the subdivision requirements versus the street requirements, and if any of these would meet the site or would meet the site distance. He said the only part. In fact, I have an email. Let me pull that up so I don't misquote him.
address that. Would the applicant like to come up and speak, add any additional information?
If you guys have any questions, I can answer them. Anything like that. If you have any questions, I can answer them. If I don't know, I'll can.
It looks like number 2 will have to exit out Gay and Evans because it'll be pretty much
Well, number 2,
landlocked, but,
parcel 2 is going to stay mine.
okay.
It'll be the same out where it is now.
Oh.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you.
So I found Mr. Curtis's email, and so the road is 14 feet wide, the right of way is 30 feet. And he said that he was out there looking at the grade, the speed limit. He says, if memory serves, only 2 lots will need some minor corrections, some bank cutbacks, fencing removed, grade work, vegetation removed, to obtain the line of sight. However, several lots will need tree removal, sorry, to obtain line of sight, or brush cutting before the final approval is given. This is often the case on county lots. We have been able to successfully work with property owners or developers in the past to make the safest entrances. So he described to me, because a lot of times on these plats, there's just not on this plat saying the Clark County Road Department will approve all the entrances. So it's hard to show on the plat exactly where these entrances are going to go or have to go. But what he explained to me earlier is he'll give the property owners 2 flags and have them place it on the property where they feel they want the entrance. And once those flags are placed, he'll go out there and judge it per line of sight to see if that's appropriate or not. And if it's not appropriate, he'll adjust it. And so he was saying most of these lots would be able to have their own private driveways. There could be potential of some there where it curves off. We're discussing 3, 4, and 5. We're actually 4, 5, and 6, kind of where that curve is. But it sounds like if they cut back some trees or move some shrubs, that there's a good potential they could grow private practice too. But each of those, whoever buys the properties and installs the driveways, are going to have to get that line of sight approved, and the driveways are approved by Mr. Curtis and the Grove Department.
Any other questions from the commission? Okay. This time we'll open the floor for public comment. Is there anyone here that'd like to speak for or against this item on our agenda?
My name is Marilyn Cook. I live on Gay Evans Road. I've lived on Gay Evans Road for all but 5 of my 71 years. I've seen a lot on Gay Evans, changes, experienced things. Some are good, some have not been so good. One that concerns me quite a bit is I own, if you look at your map, I own property that is across the road from quite a few of these plants. One of them is across from a house I grew up in. I still own that house. And when I was younger, this house sits in a low spot. Across the road, it's a hillside. And one year, the farmer decided that he wanted to plow that hill up and plant corn. Well, we had a spring rain that year, a hard spring rain. There was no grass sod to slow that rain down. Mud and water came across that road, across my parents' driveway, into their carport. My husband and I came along, and my father was in the carport with a broom, sweeping mud and water through that carport as hard as he could. Fortunately, there was a door on the back of the carport, so he could sweep it through. the water and mud came an inch of getting into the house. Well, the farmer came along about that time, my father was still sweeping madly, and saw what had happened, and he stopped and he got out and said, "I'm sorry, I should have known better. I shouldn't have plowed that land." And he promised my mother that he would never plow that land again because of what had happened. He was a good farmer. He said, "I should have realized that that was not a good thing for me to do. It's wonderful for grazing. It made great hay." That farmer was a good farmer. He was a good neighbor. I miss him. It was Arnold Jewett. My husband and I, when we retired from our professional life, we became caretakers of an almost 400-acre farm that has been in my family since about 1935. We are now cow farmers. We have about 120 mama cows. We have 2 fall calving herds, 2 spring calving herds, about 5 bulls. We are trying very hard to keep up the heritage that we've inherited. Sometimes we have to look on the other side of the fence. We have to have other people's livelihoods and their way of life, keep them in consideration. And sometimes it's hard to get on the other side of the fence and look at another point of view. I'm concerned about the runoff from driveways and from roofs, and I heard that mentioned in some of the, at least one of the buildings on Bulligan Way. Runoff was a concern. And the more driveways and buildings and houses that we have on Gay Evans, the more runoff there's going to be. That house will be in jeopardy. Gay Evans, Pretty Road Creek crosses and meanders along Gay Evans Road, and the likelihood of more flooding going on in that low area for driveways is increased. Sometimes things look really good on paper, but in reality, they're not the best or practical thing to do. I appreciate the Planning Commission and the long-range planning. My husband and I participated in some of those long-range planning meetings. I think it's a valuable resource for our community, and I hope we continue to have our planning and zoning. I understand that there's some talk about doing away with planning and zoning, but I am a very strong supporter. I think you do a very important job. Not everyone's suited for subdivision life. Of the 5 years of my life that I was in the country, I was in a subdivision in Marietta, Georgia. It was a good experience for me, but that's not where I wanted to be. I want to be in the country. I'd like to be working in the earth and with the animals, but I also see that we need to keep our green space. What about our conservation of our land? I just think we're beginning to get too many driveways and too many buildings to use our resources wisely. And I would like for you to strongly consider a different avenue for this property. Do you have any questions of me? Something that maybe I didn't cover that you're curious about?
I do agree with your way of life. I live out there too. And when Miss Aberhall's property was sold, it broke my heart, but it is what it is when it follows all the rules. And they do tear up the land. The roads, I don't mean land, I mean the roads. Pretty Run needs to be fixed. It's horrid.
Pretty Run, and that was something else I meant to mention. I'm glad you brought it up. Despite our good road crew, Pretty Run just can't be maintained. There's so much traffic on there, and the roads on, there's no shoulder left.
Right.
And I have concerns for Gay Evans. If people walk and jog, I drive my gator or my mule from one entrance to another. Thank you for your time.
I'm Steve Craycraft of 1919 Pretty Run Road. And I would just like to emphasize some of the things that Marilyn said. Like her, I agree as well that people should be able to do what they want to do with their land, but with one caveat, as long as it doesn't hurt anyone else. And in this case, this particular development is in my district, it's in my neighborhood, I live just around the corner, Pretty Run. I have witnessed the flooding that she's talking about. I know I've seen the heavy rains that caused Pretty Run Creek to get up out its banks and get up near her house. And there is no question that hardscaping across the road would cause more runoff to go into that creek. When you get rooftops and driveways and so forth, culverts and things, it's going to send more water in there and cause more problems for her. So that is causing harm to someone else. So if nothing else, I think that we're going to have to look very hard at stormwater retention, whether it be embankments or something to slow the water down or divert it or whatever. But that road can actually get closed in hard rains. I've seen that. So the other thing is, I talked with Alan Curtis this morning about the line of sight, and he told me basically some of the things that he's told you, that there were a couple lots that he was concerned about. And I was up there this morning for quite a while, and I can tell you from walking and riding that road, there's more than a couple lots that I'm concerned about not having line of sight to pull out safely and so forth. And so unless some of the embankments are removed to get that line of sight, I can't see that that would pass, and then that in turn would create more runoff, removing some of the embankments that's over on that side of the road. So I think that you need to have a hard look at that. So the other thing, maybe you can answer, I'm sure you can answer this, Rob. I guess because this is not a zoning change, it's not necessary to post anything on that property about the meeting tonight.
Yes, so signs are only required for
Zoning
changes. We also use it for development plans too.
Okay.
But subdivision plats.
For this, it wouldn't necessary.
Yeah.
So, I'm concerned about how much opportunity you've had for public input on this. I don't know how people would have known to show up here tonight if the neighbors in the neighborhood.
Adjacent property owners got a letter.
I'm sorry?
Adjacent property owners got a letter.
Oh,
Is that
you
across,
did?
is
Yes.
adjacent considered across the road?
No, it's adjoining property owners are required to get a letter. So if you share a boundary line, you receive a letter.
So you got one, Ken?
Yep. Because it backs up to me.
You're quite a, oh,
And the letters
Are you adjacent?
addressed to us.
Well, I'm on Waits Mill, I'm on the back end of it. Parcel 2 backs up to my, that's my fence line.
Okay, okay. Anyone else? John, did you do? No, no, no? Okay. I don't know. Wouldn't you think across the road should be?
So what we do, we have in the past, we've opted to do that, but we've been told recently we had a HDP5 training that do what you're required to do. Because sometimes if you make it a pattern to go over the requirement, then you forget to go over the requirement for some, you're just asking for trouble. So do the requirement. We're required to send mailing addresses, or send letters to mailing addresses that are adjoining. Those addresses are come from the PBA office. So whatever's on file with the PBA office is where we get the letter to. Bobby, do you have anything else to add to that?
I don't. That has always been my advice to this commission, as well as Nicholasville, to adhere to the direction in KRS Chapter 100 relative to notice.
Okay. Well, if you feel comfortable with that. But I would think people across the road, all along Gay Evans, within, at least a half a mile radius of this should have been informed. That's all I have. Thank you for your service on planning and zoning, and I appreciate very much what you do. Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
My name is John Rowland. I live at 1878 Gay Evans Road. And I had lived there for 5 years, not quite as many as Maryland, but it's a wonderful place. It's I call it the second prettiest road in Clark County. If I'd said it was the first, everybody would be thinking about that. Their own road's the prettiest, and wouldn't hold tight to what we're trying to say tonight. 2 or 3 things I want to mention. Gay Evans Road is really not a road, it's a lane. It's not wide enough for people to meet. 2 cars to meet, much less a hay truck or a farm implement. And I was a farmer. Cars can barely pass without pulling off the road. In some areas we have to pull off the road. 2.5 weeks ago, I believe it was a Thursday, my wife and I went to Winchester. On the way there and on the way back, we were almost run off the road 3 times in one trip. People flying down that road. My wife and I, our grandkids, we used to walk Gay Evans all the time. Such a nature trip. No more. Is not safe. The line of sight issue is a dangerous, dangerous thought. Gay Evans is up and down and around. Not only trees block the line of sight, where they don't block it, you have 2 or 3 seconds to react, pull off the road, or stop, or whatever you can to get out of the way. Not everybody stops or tries to pull off the road. It scares us to pieces now. If there are 19 lots, they're all sold. And many people have 2 cars, so conservatively estimated an additional 20 to 35 cars a day going in and out possible. Gay Evans cannot handle that traffic. Safety issues should be number 1. The ground runoff is another. Pretty Run is a blue line stream. Runs almost year round. Cattle drink from it. Kids play in it. An additional 19 septic systems. If I remember correctly, water flows downhill. The valley or the swale of Pretty Run, comes from both sides. And no matter where you put a septic system, may be lawful, may be regulated correctly, whatever, but there still will be that issue of contaminating Pretty Run. Really enjoy living out there. It's a special place. It's a special place. And the last thing is just the beauty. There is a beauty of nature that cannot be replaced. Just ask for some consideration, some help with not just the road maintenance, but the actual construction of the road. And when the road is changed, that changes everything. So that's what I need to say. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak for or against this item?
My name's Van Graham. We have a farming operation right next to the Cooks on Pretty Run on the other side of the road from this proposal. And I'm not sure, Bob, can you tell where does the creek run through these plots?
I think we've shown it. We've shown on the plat.
You can see the flood hazard area there.
You see the flood hazard area that's shown?
Yeah.
That's the creek.
So every one of these houses is going to have a bridge or something across that creek.
Alan discussed that with me this morning. He said there are going to be some driveways that will be culverts. And so they would be the ones that would be reviewing and approving those entrances.
And you know how they put those in. They drop some pipe in there, pour concrete over it, and in effect it creates a dam. And every time they put another one in, there's, you know, more water runoff that's being backed up pretty good. The other thing is that you can't tell it by this plot here, but the land drops off drastically on the other side of the road where these plots are. So that means all these driveways going up to Gay Evans are going to have to be going uphill on a steep grade. So, like somebody already said, the Gay Evans is like a lane and a half. That's it. You have, everybody, if you meet somebody, both parties have to pull over, or somebody goes in the ditch. And the other issue out there is with increasing houses that I've seen out there. You get people moving from the city, and they drive right down the middle of Pretty Run Road, including over hills. And there's a number of hills out there. And you know, it isn't a 2-lane road, and you can't do that without putting other people in danger. You get 40 or 50 cars out there, it's going to make it even worse. So I would recommend about finding something else besides all these lots out there, because it's still primarily an agricultural community. We have a small cow-calf operation over there across the road. And we have cattle trucks coming in from time to time. We have beef trucks coming in. And so, you know, we don't need a whole lot extra traffic out there. So that's all I have to say about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that'd like to speak?
If everybody else is done.
Looks like it.
I'll just make a few comments based on what's said. Talk about traffic, talk about entrances. Alan Curtis is one of the entrances. Talk about driveways, talk about pipes in the creek. The Division of Water, Kentucky Division of Water is the one that has to approve any entrance going across that creek. If you go across that creek, we have to get state approval, or whoever has to get state approval. That's just the way it is. Marilyn talked about when it flooded. Well, it flooded because of agriculture. It didn't flood because the house was there. It flooded because of agriculture. Historically, now, people might disagree with you, but two things. Historically, the chemicals used in agriculture it really taints the water more than residential. Now, some farmers may not agree with that, but it is, because when they start putting chemicals around, and when they plow the ground, there's more runoff with plowed granite than there is with a nice solid house lot. Van talked about agriculture. I think you say that anything under 5 acres is residential. What we got, 3 of those?
Well, it's anything under 5 acres is maybe just like a rural residential. It's obviously a lot size different than agriculture, but it's more rural residential.
But only 3 of these lots fall in the under the 5 acre category. All the rest of them are over 5 acres and without a doubt agriculture.
As defined by our zoning ordinance.
That's right, and this plat meets not only the letter of the law, it meets the intent.
All right, this time we'll close the floor for public comment. The applicant, would you like to say anything additional before we close? Okay. This time we'll open it to the commission for review and motion.
So whose responsibility is it for what Mr. Curtis was talking about, the banks and the trees? Is it the current owner, or is it who purchases each lot?
I wish he was here to answer that, but from what I understand, it's before the approval of the driveway is given. That's when those changes need to be made.
So that's the purchaser?
So it would be the purchaser. unless the purchaser puts it as a contingency on the sale. You know, like, if I was the purchaser, I might want to discuss that with the property owner. I won't buy this until you remove these shrubs or trees. That's between the property owner and purchaser.
I shouldn't butt in, but it's the applicant, whoever applies for the interest.
Whoever applies for the interest.
So it's a purchaser.
Then that could be the current owner, that could be the purchaser.
If he wants to make the lot more desirable, he'll put that entrance in before he sells it.
So we have before, to be good stewards of each other, for, I believe it was the corner of Combs and Vectorville maybe, asked for one lot in particular to be looked at extensively for runoff, if you remember that issue. And they agreed for that one area. Is that something that could be done for that one area? Or not?
It's, do we know what area is going to be most affected by the runoff? So it gets a little harder to enforce things like this out in the county, in the city. You know, we have what's called an MS4 boundary. So if you're going to disturb more than an acre within the city limits, you're going to have that reviewed by the engineer tech for the city. I would hope there's a counterpart for the county, but there's not much of one. We have a floodplain manager in my office that does both city and county. So if they're going to do any construction within a flood hazard area, they need to get a local permit from our floodplain manager as well as the state permit, as well as our mentioned. So those culverts, when they're put in, or bridges, when they're put in, they get those permits, so they know they're going to design these culverts or bridges, you know, by design, that meet the guidelines in place with the state.
People look, Mr. Lloyd,
Yeah.
questions here. Did you hear a question, Bobby?
I did. I tend to agree with Rob. I think that, if you're talking about, I think it's, let me back up. Are we talking about the issue about removing the vegetation?
That was the first question.
Well, yeah, removing the vegetation was the first question, but also, is it possible to require a lot that could be designed for you know, flood mitigation, you know, like retention basins, things of that nature?
I think you have the option to request it. I don't know of anything in your regulations which imposes or authorizes you to make that a requirement. But I agree with what you said at this point in time. Well, first off, I think Mr. Baldwin's point was well made, that the flooding issues very well may have been made far worse by the agricultural activities than they ever will be by the future uses. But really, without a crystal ball, we don't know where those future problems are going to be. So on this large of a tract of land in this many different lots, I don't know how we can impose anything that will reasonably address that.
And I don't have the Beckerville plat in front of me, but this plat has 9 acres, 10 acres, 11 acres, 14 acres. So these are some pretty deep, pretty large lots that could very well be used for agricultural purposes. I mean, I would say, yeah, these lots here. So, I mean, there's 14 acres, there's 11 acres, 10 acres. I mean, somebody can very well use that for agricultural purposes. It's not your large farming, but it's going to be more of a condensed minor farm. I'm no farmer, you know, but I would say it'd be difficult to farm a 5 acre or 1 acre lot. But if you have a 10 acre, 11 acre, 12 acre, you might be able to do some farming. Stephanie, you probably know more than me. I mean, I'm not a farmer, so I should probably not talk about that stuff. But as our zoning ordinance, even the state will call anything 10 acres or more a farm.
The other lots that have been sold off, are they 10 acres or 5 acres all the way down Pretty Runs Corner? Do you know off the top of your head?
The ones that are
currently.
So we can look at what currently exists here.
They're 5 acres.
So this
They're
one.
5.
That's what ours is. Most of them are, I think there's some of them that were on the old spa property that he had platted off before the zoning change that are only 2 acres.
Yeah, so that's a 5 acre, that's a 5 acre. So a lot of these are gonna be 5 acre lots here. And so,
These are all the new ones that already have homes on, is what I'm asking.
I think she's talking about the Randy Sparks development
Yeah.
that used to be part of the golf farm.
unless we can pull it up on here, we can't answer the question. But just south of this property, we see a large span of 5 acre lots just south of what we're looking at. So the property we're looking at is this here and this here. These are this is the farm in question. That's the proposal tonight. So you can look south of it and see that there are 5 acre tracts along this road. There's going to be some 5 acre tracts with this. There would be 5 acre tracts in this proposal too, as well as 6 acres, 7 acres, 8 acres, 10 acres, 11 acres, 14 acres.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask Mr. Purvis a question? Mr. Caldwell? Is there a specific reason why the 3 acre, number 3, I think it's number 19, why they're smaller in your, could you have combined it with the one beside it?
I'm not sure. Yes, I can tell you exactly why. Travis established where you wanted the rear property line of those lots. And we took the frontage, knowing 250 feet of road frontage. Each one of those has 256 feet of road frontage. Well, then, so we do that, we get how many lots we have based on road frontage. Basically draw those lines back perpendicular to the road, and where the ends, where the property lines aren't perpendicular to the road, you get a little smaller acre. And that's the reason we only had 3. Under normal circumstances, this thing wouldn't even come to the planning commission. It's just the fact they wanted to because there was this many. So we've only got 3. But they were what? Was the smallest one 2 acres?
No.
Or what was it? I can't
30
remember.
something.
We have 1.9.
Well,
Oh, there
okay.
is a 1.9?
Yeah.
What number is that?
Parcel 19.
That's the one
On
on
the
the
very
end.
end,
Yeah. And it just had to be like a triangle. We're still almost 2 acres. That's our minimum lot. You look at this thing, and you can just look at the neighborhood. You know, it's been cut up for years and years and years. I will say something to the van and talking about the spa farm. That wasn't cut up prior to zoning. It was cut up after I did it. There was a thing at the time, you had to have 150 feet of side yard on each side of the house to have less than a 5 acre tract. Those tracts are like 400 feet wide and 190 or 200 feet deep, and they're 2 acres. You're right, it's 2 acres. And that's the way it came up, but that was done according to planning and regulations at that time.
So to stay with the homes that are currently out there, how can you get a house size like that on a 1 acre? Is that doable with your setbacks and stuff?
As long as usually about 30% of the lot is the amount of coverage you can have. So as long as the house you build, and what lot coverage is anything under a roof. So it could be a house, it could be a garage, it could be a barn, so you can't cover more than 30% of the lot in most of our zones. And so what we do is when they turn in a building permit application, that's one of the things we look at, setbacks and lot coverage. And if they're meeting those requirements, building permit will be approved.
I also, as you know, I asked if I could call Mr. Curtis to see if there was a road that could be, I don't know, a sub-road, I don't know what you really call it, for everybody to pull out, so there'd be an entrance and an exit and not have 19 driveways.
What I would refer to as like a frontage road that runs parallel with K&N's road.
But he said he didn't think that would work.
Yeah, so he and I talked to him about that as well as shared driveway. So the problem we get with the shared driveway situation or the frontage road situation is maintenance. Who's going to maintain them?
Yeah, that's what he said.
Yeah, so unless there's an HOA out there or an agreement in place, but a frontage road would help protect, like you said, the amount of entrances that would be on the public road there. And so he will be turning in and out in spots instead of 19. So I don't disagree that that wouldn't be a safer environment, but it's, who's going to maintain it?
That's what I said.
Any other discussions?
So this is just the preliminary, correct? Or is this the final?
This would be the final. Fred, you're submitting this as the final.
So in looking at the sample motions and the language in those, the proposal has been found to negatively impact the area and cause unsafe conditions. Do we have any documentation that it does or doesn't?
No, see, that's why I put it add additional findings of fact to support. So if that was going to be a route that the planning commission wanted to take, those unsafe conditions would have to be stated at the meeting. So just based on public input. And so that was just one example of what could be included in the motion. So we'd have to state those specific findings as to why it's unsafe.
So this can be tabled for that to be explored?
Yeah, that's an option. Bobby, do you want to touch on that, about potential of tabling it?
Well, certainly the commission always has, if you all believe you need additional information, you always have the right to table the matter and consider it next month. If you want the applicant to provide additional information between now and then, you can require that, or if you want an opportunity for the staff to look into certain issues, we certainly would have an opportunity to do that before the next meeting.
I'm just asking, what would be the findings that we're looking for?
I'd like to see some exploration of the traffic and the infrastructure, and I'd like to see what this development, how it would impact the established community. I appreciate wanting the land and making the changes and growing and developing. I'm all for it. And there's already significant investment from our community to live here in this way. And so I want to know, what are we doing to our community in 25 years and 50 years down the road? And what are we doing now to make it still, I don't know if we keep it agricultural forever. I don't know if we turn it into subdivisions forever. I don't know. I don't think we have to answer that question. But I think we do have a responsibility to get some answers on long-term effects based on what exists now.
I do agree with some of what you're saying, but my problem with it is on less than a mile and a half down the road, we approved 20, maybe not 20, 15-ish or so. I mean, not less than 2 miles for the exact same purpose. So I wouldn't want, Mr. Gullett, that's a question from you. For you, what's the difference in that and this when it's less than 2 miles? I mean, we have to be consistent.
But we also have new information and new focus on what's happening here as far as questions being asked and considered.
Certainly the commission has to be consistent, and the development down the road that has been previously approved should be considered. But the unique thing about land issues is that each piece of land is in fact unique. And in this situation, you all have heard objections from several neighbors about this particular piece of property and flooding issues and so forth that have been historically present. So I don't think the mere fact, the fact that you all have previously approved 5-acre developments in the general area of the county should be considered and should be weighed by the commission, but that does not mandate that you have to make that same decision tonight.
Well, along those lines, when those were approved, were any of these other factors considered? Did the neighbors bring up the same concerns and questions about traffic and agriculture and runoff? Does that already exist?
I'm sure I did, because I live there and drive every day. But when and when it does, water comes, it will stand. But even talking with Alan Curtis, the purposes of that flooding part is the culverts they put in. And that's a whole different conversation, because they need to be better and bigger. The homes are beautiful, the traffic's horrid, Pretty Run Road's horrid. Mr. Crocraft drives that every day, there is no side.
I'm trying.
And this is Mr. Purvis's second attempt for this particular property to be changed, with a whole different venue that leaves green space. I mean, you can't deny all of, I think it's Sparks who sold off all those beautiful homes that are on that road. To me, that is no different than this. Consistency is very important to me, because I think it's integrity almost, and to me, that's just the way I interpret it. And I don't see how we can pick and choose. I would like Mr. Purvis to relook at those 3 small lots. I like to keep them 5 or more, but I'm not the one who made these regulations. I think it's being good stewards of the neighborhood to keep them larger. Just because it's 250 feet doesn't mean it can't be more. You know, if you gave up the 3 smaller lots and made, you know, the 18 and 19, one larger one, and combined number 3 with the one beside it, you know, you have 3 less driveways. You know, can you be good stewards and make a few changes to?
Well, and that's what I possibly think.
But I don't know that that's in our, you know, if it meets the regulations, it is what it is. I mean, and I live there, and I see it.
Based on the fact that the proposal has been found to negatively impact the area and cause unsafe conditions, we don't know that it has or hasn't. I think until that's really documented,
but it might not rain for another, who knows? So we're doing a what if with Mother Nature, just like we did on other properties. I mean, I want to be fair. I want to be consistent and fair. They can't say that we're not, and follow the law.
I think the number one thing that comes up when we get applications like this is the size of the county road and an annual traffic that this is going to bring to it.
Well, that's about no on every one we have before us. Because you know, I've said 1,000 times, even to the magistrates, when a farmer, and we're farmers, want to sell off a big property, take 10 feet, 12 feet, and make that part of the road wider. And eventually, the road will be 2 lanes. But that could be any county road out there.
can it be approved and delayed?
Approved and delayed?
In terms of execution? Okay, we approved this, but it won't start for 15 years.
Well, I don't think that's fair to a homeowner. I mean, that would be like somebody telling us that we can't make a profit
Well,
also.
how do we protect the people the other people who are there? So if they're gonna roll out or their generations are gonna turn over, at least they know where they're going and what to expect. You can laugh, but how do we balance, present and future?
That's one of the reasons why I think it's good that we're looking into our zoning ordinance and making updates where needed, because there's some safeguards that we may be able to update the ordinance with that can maybe help in cases like this where the streets are large poles like this will require the streets to be wide, or require some effort on the developer to improve the conditions of the roadway. Right now our zoning ordinance doesn't have those requirements, and that's something that we can look into. I think as we move forward with the subcommittee that we discussed. I think somebody made a comment tonight that is being discussed that zoning can be taken away. No, the quite opposite. Discussions are being made where we can improve our zoning ordinance, not take it away. So again, with what we have in our zoning ordinance today, we might be a bit limited, but I think moving forward, when we focus on the subcommittee and focus on the ordinance, we can make sure that safeguards in place that are better for our community. And I think we can explore that. We're not the first ones that meet these issues. I'm sure Fayette County or Bourbon County or a number of surrounding or nearby counties have faced these issues too, so we can look to doors. Bobby, do you want to make any comments on what's been said?
Well, I don't, personally, I don't think we have the right to approve it and then put a moratorium on it. I understand the rationale behind it, but, I don't think we have the power to do that, and I think it would be a dangerous precedent to begin.
Is it appropriate for me to ask Mr. Purvis another question?
Sure.
Would you consider taking the smaller lots and combining those into larger ones, or?
Well, what we were planning on doing, I talked with my realtor about this, and I'm pretty sure I talked to you, I don't remember. When we were gonna go sell the small lots, I was gonna try to group them in with the lots right beside them. That way, the purchaser of the larger lot would buy that lot as well, and we'd just add it in as one instead of that little lot. Now, I know you say the chances of that happening might be a little low, but that was my thinking of it. But if you, I mean, we can change it if you want. We can change it if you guys want to, and we can make those end lots just end with the lots beside it anyway. If that makes it easier. If that, I mean, 3 driveways isn't really a big difference, but it's 3.
But it can be, I mean, but you're still getting,
And that too, that would put everything without a doubt, agriculture. Everything being in excess of 5 acres in.
I mean, if I'm not allowed to ask that, please tell me, and I'll
I think that's
read
right.
If they did that, they wouldn't be here tonight, because that would have just been approved in August.
True.
All right, so that is parcel 3, that's 3.116 or 8? Sorry.
If you bring it back
Hold
up on your end,
yeah.
you can read it.
Sorry. That would be the smart thing to do, right?
Because I can't read that.
Yeah.
I know Melanie can.
It's 3.116, yes, she can.
Thank you, thank you.
So parcel 3.
3.116, and then we have parcel 19 at 1.958, and parcel 18 at 3.
Hold on.
19 is 1.958, and parcel 18 is 3.638. Probably one of the quickest things you can do is just consolidate 18 and 19 together, and then you can consolidate 4 and 3 together. Or if you wanted to be creative, you can just.
That's it. That's it right there.
Bob knew what I was trying to
That's
say.
it.
Yeah, okay.
We're not going to reinvent the wheel on this.
All right. I think you knew what I was, yeah. Either option would be fine. So that would be what you were meeting, is just consolidate those.
So they're all 5 or more.
They're all 5 acres. And those lots might become more desirable because you have a lot more road frontage on those lots.
Can you live with that?
I don't love it. But we don't have to approve it if that happens, is that correct?
Just go to staff to review in the office.
So they're, in the subdivision regulations, they have what's called an agriculture division. And so that goes along with the KRS statute that protects division of land for agriculture purposes. So in that case, our definition of ag is 5 or more acres. So if they were going to do that, we would just require a record plat. Everything you recorded at the courthouse after staff reviews it and planning commissions, the secretary's not. So no, that wouldn't require public hearing if that were the case.
Mr. Gullett, do you see anything wrong with that compromise?
I do not.
Liz?
two things that could happen. I mean, somebody could entertain a motion to approve with the changes that were stated, or if it is denied, they can come back with an agriculture division with every lot being 5 acres or more. Wouldn't necessarily have to go to the public hearing. Does that sound right, Bob? Bob, I'm sorry, what
Yeah.
Bob or Bobby? But that is correct in saying that.
What
Yes,
is,
I believe it is.
what is your recommendation of this body? To
Well-
approve it with the changes, or let them make the changes and go back to the office?
Well, I think the changes have been fairly well defined, and they only involve a few lots. So I have no problem if the applicant is willing to make those changes. The commission taking action on it subject to that, and then delegate to the staff the obligation to review the final plat and make sure they're correctly reflected on it.
I think it does answer your question about keeping in agriculture. Yeah, I agree with
Is there a possible motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the major subdivision plat subdividing the 341 acre agricultural zone property located at 725 K Edwards Road to a total of 17 parcels based on the fact that the properties would be sixed.
No, it would be.
Which is up to 17 parcels based on the fact that the properties are found to meet the minimum dimensional and area requirements as found in Article 6.1 of the Winchester Clark County zoning ordinance. Probably driveway entrances will need to be reviewed and approved by the Clark County Road Department prior to a building permit being issued for each lot. Certification for approval will need to be presented to the Planning and Community Development Department and accompany the building permit application. Shared driveways are encouraged to eliminate the number of entrances developed on the Gate Evans Road. Lots number 3 and 4 will be combined, and 18 and 19 will be combined. Is that correct?
All they can. Good. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Let's do a roll call vote.
Melanie Henry. Elizabeth Martin. Christie Bush. Aye. Bill Hart. Aye.
3 to 1. Motion passes. Okay, this time we'll move to.
Thank you all.
Thank you for being willing to work.
Anytime. Thank you so much.
This time we'll move to public hearing D, reviewing the major subdivision plat subdividing the general business zone property located at 1500 Mount Sterling Road into 2 tracts.
The applicants would like to subdivide the 16.044 acre commercial property into a total of 2 parcels. Tract 2B would be a 10.001 acre. Tract 2A would be 4.543 acres. It's stated that tract 2B would be proposed to be consolidated or combined with parcel 1, totaling at 11.501 acres. And the definitions of major and minor subdivisions are defined below. One big reason why this is coming before the planning commission tonight is because the properties are now commercial. So any division of land for commercial purposes would be considered a major subdivision. So this was brought for you guys a little while back. Stated here that the property was part of the 23.7 acres that were reviewed for the zoning amendment at the May 2024 planning commission meeting. The planning commission made a recommendation to rezone the property from agriculture to general business. The property was rezoned. A final development plan is still awaiting approval. So we're still waiting approval of that final development plan. We've seen a preliminary plan, which is not the final yet. Any questions or comments for staff?
Is the applicant or their representation here?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize for being late. I was teaching at the University of Kentucky, so I had to drop Mr. Jeffries is kind enough. Mr. Chairman, this is really more of an administrative function, I think, but for the fact that this was zone business, Mr. Jeffries has indicated that this would have actually been done internally. Is that correct, Rob?
If it wasn't zone commercial.
Yeah, if it wasn't zone commercial, this would have just been a pen and paper, but because it was zone commercial, we had to bring it back to you all. In particular, what we're looking at is what is tract 20, is it 28?
Well, 2B.
2B, I'm sorry. 2B and parcel 1, we are consolidating. The reason we're having to do this is you can see at the top, Kentucky Housing Corporation owns that house. There's a house up there that's been foreclosed on and sold. Those two parcels were supposed to have been sold together when it was done originally. The seller before, or the owner before Taylor Auction Company bought that, just sold off the house and left parcel 1 just hanging. It didn't have any ownership at all. It couldn't be, the Kentucky Housing Corp didn't want to buy it, so we purchased it when we got the contract for tract 2B, and we're just trying to clean that up just so that it's one designated tract put together. And like I said, but for the commercial zoning of the B4, this would have been an internal thing, so hopefully you all will approve that tonight.
And just to explain a little bit on the plat, you see the, what looks like a Z right here? That's what's called a land hook. And so what that does is, anywhere you see a land hook, it abolishes or takes out that line. So that's what it means by consolidating parcel tract 2B with parcel 1, that land hook will take out that line and only one large parcel.
So originally parcel 1 was with that house.
Yes.
And the house sold, but not the land. So now you're combining parcel 1 with the 2.
Yes, parcel 1 is included in the original rezoning.
And Ms. Bush, if I may, so the owners zoned it initially, so that was all owned by Bill Swope. Bill and Rose Swope owned that whole parcel. And they sold off what is now parcel 1 of Kentucky Housing to a gentleman, and he had it zoned. And at that point, they had to be sold together. Well, 15 years ago, the guy sold the house and didn't sell parcel 1. So it's been hanging out there like an orphan child. And the owners that owned the property didn't want it. And then Kentucky Housing, then they got foreclosed on. Kentucky Housing didn't want it. Kentucky Housing says, we just want to get rid of what we got. Because we're losing money on that. So Mr. Taylor, when we got the contract with SLM, Mr. Taylor says, I'll just buy that and we'll just consolidate it. That way we can clean it up and it's not hanging out there.
Any other questions for that? Okay, this time we'll open the floor for public comment. Is there anyone that'd like to speak for or against this?
My name is Ann Barker, and I live at 5450 Mount Sterling Road. And I had not appeared before you all at the initial because we wasn't aware of the zone change. Unfortunately, the signs were put up when we had a monsoon season. They were put, 2 of them on the property, but being paper, they rained for 3 days and they were rolled up. And we passed by them, but we couldn't read them. And so when we did get a chance to read it, you all had already approved it. But the approval was based on no paperwork. You all optioned to go ahead and approve it without any plats, without any paperwork whatsoever. So by the time it got to the fiscal court, we had figured this out, and we did appear before the fiscal court. And they tabled it to send it back to you all. So this is why I'm here today and wasn't at the very beginning. But this has been kind of a piecemeal thing from the original application. The Taylors had bought that first piece of property that they're talking about, the 1.51 acres, I believe in March of buying the other. But they had owned that under Taylor Sales, all sales, I think. And then came along with the rest of this. But the original application that was filed is for 23.7 acres, including that, and coming on down the other two. But now, that's being changed. The middle section of the middle acreage, they don't want all of that. They only want 10 of that 14 acres. Am I right, Mr. Jeffrey?
Correct, yes, they're only purchasing 10 acres from SLM.
Okay, they just want the 10 acres out of that 14. Okay, to me, that should be an entirely new application. The original is not totaling what we're actually getting. So I think this application should start. We've just been kind of adding to it, piecemealing it, and tweaking it as we go along. And now we're down to, we don't want all 23, that's what the original application was looking at here saying.
I think the applicant wanted to clarify something about how much they're going to be purchasing. From the plat, it looks like they're only going to consolidate 10 acres with parcel.
If you'll notice, there's two applicants, SLM Properties, who owned all but parcel 1, and Taylor Auction Company, LLC. So there are two applicants, not just one, and those were set out on both of those. So all of that has been zoned. There are contracts between those two parties for the entire 23 acres. Now, Ms. Barker, you might have enough money where you live out there on the Mount Sterling Road to buy it all at one time. We have negotiated with, Taylor Auction Company has negotiated with SLM. The first plan is to take tract 2B in parcel 1, go ahead and develop that. Mr. Baldwin and I had spoken with the Department of Transportation about how wide we can make our entrances. That's going to determine how we develop the other, what would that be, the other 12 acres, which would include the 4.3, and then what is south of that is still owned by SLM. So the whole 23 acres is still in play. It's just, will SLM develop it, or will Taylor Auction Company develop it?
Well, I wouldn't be sarcastic enough to say anything financially from our side. But still yet, if we're talking about two different people developing this, what are we don't have any paperwork now from SLM. That's the first time. Don't know if they're gonna develop it or Taylor Auction people. So we keep kicking this thing and tweaking it. It seems like as we go down the road, there's something new. Every time we appear before the new office, something new cropping up with this. I'm just looking at the original application that was filed with you all in April the 2nd.
I agree that it would have been preferred to have the development plan reviewed prior before the subdivision plat. That's usually what happens, but there's nothing that says it can't happen this way, especially with when the motion was made, or the recommendation was made to approve the zoning amendment change. That they then required the applicant to bring the development plan to the planning commission before it's developed. So that's still in play. The applicant needs to bring the final development plan to this body for us to review it prior to developing it. When it comes to SLM properties, tract 2A, it depends on what they choose to develop. If they have more than one primary structure on that lot, then they're required to bring a development plan. If there's one large primary structure, then they would just need to do a site plan and application for building permit, which wouldn't require public hearing. So, but we know that Taylor Auction will need to bring a final development plan to this body. When it comes to if SLM is going to develop tract 2A, it just depends on the development, whether or not a development plan will be required or not.
And then this plan doesn't show any buildings or structures. So that means another application if they decide to put a building?
Yeah, so the final development plan was essentially, I don't know if it was tabled, it was just, the planning commission stated that the final development plan would have to be brought back to the planning commission before it's developed. So that was included in the recommendations that was sent to the fiscal court. The thing is, the fiscal court's not required to approve the development plan, this body is. The fiscal court's required to approve the final, say, for rezoning. And so you get into that.
But at this point, this would not go back to the fiscal court, right?
You would not.
Well, I still respectfully think that with all this tweaking and everything as we go along and something new popping up, that the original application should cover what we're doing right now, not where we think SLM or the Taylors might be down the road.
Well, we know that 11.5 roughly acres need to have a development plan before they move forward with anything. So if this gets approved tonight, the development plan for that 11.5 acres is still required to come before this board. Track 2A, it just depends on how they're going to develop it. If they're going to have more than one primary structure on that lot, it's going to require a development plan. If it's just one large primary structure, you could only require a site plan and building permit. That's how our zoning ordinance is written.
Well, I also would like to add that anything dealing with this property, if you all could just take a few minutes and come out the Mount Sterling Road, that the rest of this property that they're talking about is near a very sharp curve, which also has a walking path. No rail, nothing for people to walk to Lycans Park. And really, this should never have been zoned for what it is. And it was used by Lycans Park for Little League, and also as a venue when they had entertainment, like 4th of July Memorial Day or something like that, for all the traffic that parked over there. And the Mount Sterling Road certainly, and I guess this would just be machinery parked the year round because they had the sale the middle of last month, and we still got machinery and things on the property there now. I'm not didn't sell it, we're accumulating for another sale, but I guess it'll be a year-round thing. But I respectfully have requested that it be another application. Oh, and I might add that I have learned something too. I didn't know that an enormous black bull was considered farm machine. But we did have one on the property for sale. Not be a farm, but that's the first.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else?
I'm Harold Barker, and that was my wife Ann, and we lived out there on Mount Sterling Road since 1974. The property that's across from Lycans Park is where the Little League uses for the extra practice fields, which they have used every summer during the baseball season. And then also they use the other side of the park for the lighted field down there is where the lights are. There were heavy lights on the left side. But anyway, our thinking is that everything should be left as it is, because Mr. and Ms. Lycans was kind enough to donate that property to be passed on to the Little League aged children or young children growing up and in school for use for recreation. And then they also use the park for musical entertainment, sometime 4th of July, Labor Day weekend, things like that. So we should honor their thinking, and I don't know whether any of the Lycans family are still living, but we should honor their thinking and keep it just the way was meant to be for parks and recreation and entertainment. And really, y'all should go back and rezone it for agriculture. I don't think you have a zoning just for Little League or for softball or for entertainment. But whatever zoning that we had before should be reverted back to that and keep it just like it was, the way the Likens, Mr. Ms. Likens wanted it. And so that's why I'm agreeing with my wife that it should be kept, if it's agriculture or whatever zoning it is, and not to have commercial, not have any kind of commercial activities on it, and all this heavy equipment sitting around over there, and the Little League or anybody wants to go over there and practice softball or do anything like that, they can't do it now because the Gary Allen family, they're having these auctions. So we should keep it just for that purpose, for either parks and recreation activities or entertainment. And if y'all would be kind enough to reconsider going back and rezoning it as it was. And that's the reason I'm up here to try to just mention that. And I want to make myself clear that the Gary Allen family had an auction last year up there at the Country Time Motors, where the Country Time Motors was. So when Country Time Motors moved, they had an auction up there, as y'all probably know. It was good, level land, concreted. They could pull in the heavy equipment and whatever else they wanted to have for an auction sale, and no problem. But now they got to go down a little 2-lane road, Mount Sterling Road, with all that heavy equipment in and out of the park area on the left as you go out. So I just wanted to ask if y'all could go back and think about leaving it agriculture or whatever zoning we revert back to, that it would just be kept like it was for Little League, entertainment, 4th of July activities, Labor Day activities, anything like that. Because they don't have any other place. There's no other place that I know of in Clark County where you can do those things. And Mr. and Ms. Likens was kind enough to donate that land years ago. And of course, Ann and I didn't know them, but they were kind enough to donate that land for those purposes. So I just want to make these comments, and if y'all could consider going back and whatever, I don't know whether you have to create a new zoning ordinance just for parks and recreation and entertainment. But I think the way it was before was agriculture. So I just wanted to make those few comments.
Thank you, sir.
Carolyn, I just wanted to thank you all for your time and appreciate your understanding of our situation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak for or against this? Before we close the floor for public comment? Okay. Would the applicant like to provide any rebuttal?
I represent SLM, George Stanford and Eloise Combs. They own that property. They have never given Likens the
consent to have concerts over there, to park cars over there. In fact, I know that the issue came up, Mr. Harp said that there was and for a period of about 5 years, there was a lease that they got paid. Said they have not received any payments since 2010 at all. And so the other option is SLM owns all the other property on that corner. It's zoned light industrial. SLM owns Paul Oil. They own Kentucky Petroleum Supply. There has been discussions that they may even expand those. So, you know, we could either have a business that has auctions, or we could potentially have a petroleum plant. So they were kind enough to go ahead and let us contract with them for this. Like I said, it's not going to change because SLM wouldn't get paid. It wasn't part of Likens Park. It wasn't part of the Likens Foundation. It was actually, they were actually just trespassing. And one of the things that we're doing is they were down prior to the contract that we entered into, they were riding motorcycles on there, which created some liability to Ms. Combs, and she was a little bit concerned about what they were going to have to do to stop access there. So contrary to what everybody believed, that's what was going on, but we're just asking for the approval of the plan.
Actually, there is no SLM. It is sold also out to investors in New York. Because their home office is in South Carolina. So actually, that's the original deed, SLM, but there isn't any existence now.
Mr. Golden, Bobby?
Yes.
Is there any reason that we should be leery of the SLN properties not being on the one before and on this one? I just want to make sure I know that answer.
No, I have no problem at all with the request. I think the issues surrounding zoning have been resolved, and the only issue now is the replanting of the property, and I don't see any problem at all with it.
Thank you.
This time the floor is closed and open to the commission for review and motion.
To approve the major subdivision plat subdividing the B4 zoning property located at 1500 Mount Sterling Road, consolidating tract 2B with parcel 1 and keeping tract 2A as its own separate tract, and the assigned address for tract 2A will need to be addressed to the plat prior to recording. This approval is based on the fact that the proposal meets the final requirement and adheres to the subdivision regulations.
We have a motion, is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Okay, this time we'll move into other business, questions and comments.
I have, so I know already, week there is an E55 training in Frankfurt. It's going to be November 14th, 2024. So if you would like to attend that Frankfurt, Kentucky training, I already spoke to one of you. So we can get you registered for it, especially if you weren't able to come to the training we have here in Winchester. It's a good opportunity to go. Even if you did come to the training here in Winchester, it's still a good opportunity if you like to attend. Sean Moore is going to give a presentation again, so he might go over some of the same things you already taught us. But David Pike will be at this one. And so if you're interested, just shoot me an email and get you registered.
The committee's got a first meeting scheduled
Next Wednesday.
When is it? Wednesday what?
1:30, right? Look at you. You scheduled it, right? Not me?
You proposed, I said I could come.
I'm kidding. Yeah, it's next Wednesday, 1:30.
Is it in Girl?
It's going to be at the City Hall in the training room, which is on the second floor. You go past the planning office and sit on your right.
So anybody can go and listen, I know free.
Yeah, so it's advertised at the public meeting. So if any of anyone from the public can come and attend, I would say, Bobby, should we be worried about, say, if any of the planning commissioners want to attend just to listen? Would that be an issue, or should we worry about having a quorum?
I think we should, not allow more than what would be 50% less one of the members to be present.
So quorum is 5.
Right, so
We're already gonna have 3.
there should be 4 or less members.
So 4 or less planning commissioners, so we have the 3 subcommittee members. I was hoping for one of you, if you guys want to come. But anyone from the public can attend and listen. There's not going to be an opportunity to take public comment necessarily, but they can be there and listen and be aware of what we're discussing. I say this first meeting is probably going to be more about the logistics of it all. Just like going over how big what the zoning ordinance is and how much you want to cover the first meeting or the second meeting, or divided into quarters, what have you. I don't think we're going to dive too deeply into trying to problem solve, but mostly just thinking about and planning about how we're going to tackle it in the next 3 to 4 months or so. Subcommittee. Yeah, we tried to schedule a meeting before, but we're asked about the Meetings Act and whether this would be applied to the Meetings Act, so to be safe, we would have had cancel that meeting or adhering to those requirements. So the notice is already it's going to be in the paper on Tuesday. It was in the paper Tuesday. To meet the requirement.
So your all's purpose is to decide what you're going to look at, do some research, look at some proposals, and then.
What I mean Tuesday was it should have been in the paper today. I emailed the Winchester Sun last week that it is paper today.
I think it'd just be good for the committee to understand the process to go about it, bringing it back for a hearing and how it goes to the governing bodies, but establish a way for either the fiscal court or the city commission to send feedback for any sort of prioritization or review, and then the public, if there's anyone that would has a concern they would like the committee to look at. To me, I think they send it to Rob, staff, and staff shares that with the committee, but I would just be clear with that, and so we can advertise that.
We'll go over this more on Wednesday too, but when it comes to any tax amendment, it's very similar to the zoning map amendment, where it requires, if they come before this body, you guys will make a recommendation after a public hearing, and that recommendation will go to the fiscal court and the city commission for final. Pretty much they will make the final after they go 2 readings. It should be 2 readings with the governing bodies, right? On this, or is it just the one?
Yeah.
2? Okay.
So based on what you just said, Mr. Chairman, would it be a good steward to have like a platform or a way they can send them to you to know, like, hey, can you look at this?
Yes.
Can you look at that?
So we have a planning email, planning@winchesterkly.com. We use that for the comp plan update. That'd be a good one to use for this too.
Is that kind of what you meant?
Yeah, I just contact Rob or drop it off in the office. I thought we could only have 3. Are we able to have 4 then?
So 3 people are there was the subcommittee, but if one other planning commissioner would like to go and attend,
And if they're in the room.
they can be in the room, but more than that would risk more.
Sounds like Christie wants to be on it too.
I don't know that I can come at 1:30.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to hear how the first meeting goes, and I think it's
good to do. It's well overdue. Our zoning ordinance, there's a lot of updates that need to be proposed.
Just let you know if any of the other 4 of us, one can come, just let you know.
Yeah, just let us know.
anything else or motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you all.
All right, thank you. You have a good one, Bobby. You already left.
That's the beauty of Zoom. It's like as soon